Just because my wife never spoke, everyone thought I married a mute bride. However, in fact, she is not mute, and her singing voice is very beautiful. The reason why she doesn't speak is exactly what I asked her to do, because if she speaks, there will be a bloody disaster. So, in order to make her life tougher, my friend gave me an idea and asked me to call her Ellie in the future. He said that as long as she is not a scumbag, she is basically invincible. At that time, I was cooking at home. Suddenly, a friend rushed to me and asked me if I wanted a wife. I said, "Don't joke with me." He said, "As long as you open your mouth, I will send your wife to you, and you can prepare for the bridal chamber tonight." I thought it was a joke, so I said, "Then send her to me." As a result, he really sent me a wife. The girl was very young, her whole body was wet, and the thin clothes stuck to her body. She looked a little thin. It was cold at night, she hugged her shoulders and shivered, looking at me nervously. My friend said to the girl excitedly, "You will be his wife, okay?" But the girl looked at us puzzled, as if she didn't understand what my friend said. In a hurry, my friend made a circle with his left hand and inserted the index finger of his right hand into the circle. Seeing his vulgar gestures, I quickly grabbed his hand. But the girl understood. She blushed and nodded. I looked at her shy appearance and couldn't help but stare at her. She was quite pretty. This kind of girl was not someone I could ever expect. I wanted to grab my friend and ask him what was going on, but my friend was careless and refused to leave. He pointed at the girl and said, "I heard my dog barking late at night, and when I came out, I saw this girl snatching food from the dog bowl. She also rummaged through my trash can and took out the watermelon rinds from it to eat." When I heard this, I immediately understood everything. In the middle of the night, wet, snatching food from the dog, there was only one possibility. I asked if she had swum from the other side of the river. My friend nodded excitedly and said that he had discussed it with his wife. If the girl was sent back, she would be shot on the spot. He felt sorry for me being single, so he quickly sent her to me. He asked me to prepare the wine and food quickly and treat today as my wedding banquet, and invite some relatives and friends to have a drink. I also understood what my friend meant. Since the girl swam here secretly, we definitely couldn't have a big wedding banquet. But I was also a little nervous because we didn't know each other at all, and suddenly a pretty girl was thrust upon me to be my wife. Who knew that my parents would be so excited that they called over several relatives in the middle of the night? My mom happily went to buy groceries while my dad went to greet the guests. At the dinner table, everyone looked at the girl curiously and asked her name. She lowered her head and didn't dare to speak, eating in small bites, not even daring to pick up food from the table. I saw that she was too nervous and wanted to help her pick up food, but was afraid she would dislike my chopsticks, so I took her chopsticks and helped her instead. My friend smiled and said, "Let's call her Ellie. Isn't this a popular name? And as long as you're not a jerk, you'll be strong." Everyone was happy and thought the name was fine. That was the first time Ellie and I met. My cousin didn't seem very happy. He was drinking and staring at Ellie's chest from time to time. Finally, under the influence of alcohol, he asked my friend, "I don't have a wife either, why don't you send me one?" The atmosphere turned a little awkward. My cousin originally had a wife, but because he was always out playing with prostitutes, his wife couldn't stand it and ran away with their child. But my cousin also happened to be infected with a disease. As a result, the ladies were unwilling to see him. My eldest uncle quickly pushed my cousin and said, "Other people are getting married, what are you talking about? Aren't you happy for your brother?" The cousin said unhappily, "He saved hundreds of thousands, why should I be happy for him? Besides, he's clean and will have a chance to get a wife in the future. What about me? What should I do? The girls avoid me when they see me." My father also felt embarrassed and quickly said, "I will definitely introduce you to someone in the future. It's getting late, let's go to the bridal chamber first." I was urged by my relatives to get up and leave with Ellie. My cousin stared at Ellie. When we passed by him, he suddenly stretched out his hand and pinched Ellie's thigh hard. Ellie was so scared that her whole body trembled, but my cousin said excitedly, "Let's make trouble in the bridal chamber." The eldest uncle was furious and quickly slapped my cousin in the face and told him to be quiet. Ellie and I returned to the room. My mother had specially changed the bedspread into a red one long ago. Ellie sat on the quilt, nervously grabbing the corner of her clothes with her hands. I knew this was taking advantage of someone's misfortune. She fled her country just to have a full meal, but I really couldn't help it. I rushed over and hugged Ellie. She didn't resist, but her body was shaking. I said, "Don't be afraid. I won't do anything rash. I have never hugged a girl in my life. Please let me hold you." She didn't understand what I said, so she just lay in my arms. Her eyes were wet and she wanted to cry, but she was afraid I would spoil the moment, so she closed her eyes and let the tears slide down. She raised her head and waited for me to kiss her. I didn't kiss her on the mouth, I just put my arms around her waist and gently sniffed the fragrance of her hair. It turned out that girls are so fragrant and soft. I just hugged Ellie like that, feeling her body temperature. At first, she cried in my arms, but after a while, when she saw that I didn't move, she secretly observed me with her bright eyes. My wedding night was just spent in a hug. They were so fragrant and soft. Girls are so beautiful. Just a hug can make people intoxicated. I couldn't control the enthusiasm in my heart. My heart was beating hard. My body was shaking with tension. I liked the fragrance of every breath. I was so happy I thought I was going to die. The next morning, my parents asked me how I was. I was embarrassed to say I didn't do anything, so I just said I was fine. They encouraged me to get pregnant early and said that once she became a mother, Ellie would regard this place as her real home. From that day on, everyone knew that I had a wife. But Ellie would not speak, for fear of being recognized and deported to be shot. We lied to outsiders and said that I married a mute. People were not surprised when they found out. They said no girl would ever like me in this lifetime, so marrying a mute girl wasn't seen as a bad thing. In fact, Ellie's voice was very beautiful. I used translation software to talk with her. Every time she spoke, I would look at her and smile foolishly. She would blush under my gaze and poke my nose with her finger. I was so happy every day with Ellie. She was kind and always let me sleep in her arms. Girls are so fragrant and soft. But half a month later, this happiness was shattered. One day, my father and I went out for work, but the electric bike ran out of power. I decided to push it home to charge. As I reached the door, I heard Ellie crying inside. I quickly told my father to stop and rushed into the house only to be stunned. My cousin was on top of Ellie, tearing off her clothes while she struggled fiercely, her face bruised and swollen. When he saw me suddenly return, he cursed while pulling up his pants, then slapped Ellie hard across the face and said with disgust, pretending to be pure. I was furious. I rushed over and knocked him down, ready to punch him, but he sneered and said, "Just try it. If I call the police, your wife will be deported and shot." I froze. I knew there was a police station at the street corner. Seeing that I didn't dare to move again, he shoved me aside, dressed calmly, and muttered, "Your wife is so stupid. If she wants to live, she better serve me well, right?" At that moment, my father entered. When he saw what happened, he immediately understood. He punched my cousin straight in the face and roared, "You beast." My cousin fell to the floor, bleeding from the mouth. I rushed to wipe my father's hands with a rag. My cousin had a contagious disease. At first, he wasn't angry, but when he saw what I did, he flew into a rage. He stood up and shouted, "You think I'm dirty? You hit me? I'll have your wife shot right now." He dashed out the door and screamed, "Police! I want to report an illegal immigrant." I was terrified and chased after him, but the station was too close. He had already reached it and was pointing at me, telling the police, he married an illegal immigrant. Go arrest him. My heart pounded wildly. Panic made my mind go blank. A police officer poked his head out, smoking a cigarette. He said, "Register first. Fill out the form." My cousin was stunned. I still have to fill out forms. The officer replied, there's a process for everything. My cousin grew impatient. If you don't hurry, she'll run away. The officer remained calm, just fill it out so I can go check. Frustrated, my cousin filled out the form, and the police eventually came with us. But by then, Ellie was gone. My father had hidden her. Seeing the house empty, the officer said, you said someone was here, but I see no one. I'll come back to check later. Then he returned to the station. My cousin stayed, swearing in frustration. Later, I learned that this was how things worked. When someone reported illegal immigrants, the police would usually walk slowly. People came here only to find work and eat, not to commit crimes. When deported, some cried and begged, but the law had to be enforced. The worst was when they were handed over and the other side opened fire. Bang, someone would die. Over time, the police developed an unspoken rule: unless the person was a criminal, they would respond slowly, giving the village time to hide the person. If they found no one, they'd just say they'd return later. That night, my father brought Ellie back. She was terrified, trembling in my arms. I stroked her hair and told her not to be afraid, but I was shaking inside. I almost lost her. I hugged her tightly and whispered again and again, I love you. Ellie shakily opened the translation app. When she heard me, she looked at me with a face still covered in bruises. She whispered something I couldn't understand, but then she kissed me, and the app played a mechanical voice, I love you too. I'm afraid to leave you. Something burst in my heart. We kissed clumsily. Girls tasted sweet. My heart was racing. I put my hand inside her clothes and caressed her back, feeling her heartbeat quicken with mine. That night, we finally became husband and wife. Though it was illegal in her country, we could be together. The police officer, his name was Nathan, became my greatest benefactor. I called him Officer Nathan and added him on WeChat. He didn't like to chat. No matter how many messages I sent, he never replied. But I left a pack of cigarettes for him every day at the station window. One day, he left money there with a stern note telling me to take it. I hesitated. He leaned back, reading the newspaper, and said one pack wasn't enough. If I brought 2, he'd pay me. I was thrilled. I went from giving gifts to running errands, but I felt happy. Thanks to Officer Nathan turning a blind eye, I could take Ellie for walks and talk with her, enjoying the breeze by the river. She would occasionally look across the river and finally snuggle happily in my arms, learning to speak Mandarin from me. Originally, in the eyes of my relatives, I was a poor guy who couldn't get a wife, but now everyone envies me because Ellie is beautiful and capable. Especially since we gave birth to a beautiful daughter, it made me the happiest person in the family. Because of this, I was often reported I knew it was all done by my cousin. The happier I was, the more he hated me. Fortunately, there was Officer Nathan. He always came slowly and gave me enough time to hide Ellie. I never thought that such a happy life would be broken. That day was the first time my daughter went to school. We were in a hurry and sent the child to the kindergarten. The daughter cried and refused to leave her mother. Ellie was distressed and shed tears, but for the sake of the child's education, she said that if she didn't go to class, she would be spanked. The daughter cried even harder and said she didn't want to be spanked. Finally, I comforted her by saying that her birthday was coming soon and I would buy her a cake. Only then did she calm down. We sent her to kindergarten and were reluctant to leave. She cried in the classroom for more than half an hour. Suddenly, I received a call from Officer Nathan on WeChat. He asked me if I was free to have a drink at noon. I was stunned. A bad premonition spread in my heart. Officer Nathan never took the initiative to talk to me, and I had heard that police officers weren't allowed to drink at noon. My heart beat faster with anxiety. I called Ellie, but she didn't answer. On the way back, we kept trying to contact her, but couldn't reach her. Especially after we got home, we searched the entire house but couldn't find her. I started to panic. We walked to the restaurant where Officer Nathan asked to meet. My whole body was hot and dry, and I broke out in hives. It was very itchy. I took off my shirt, exposing my chest, but the heat and panic still covered me with red rashes. I scratched myself hard, unable to suppress the panic even as my skin broke. Officer Nathan came. I asked him why he suddenly had time. He sat down, poured himself a glass of white wine, and said he had taken leave his superiors told him to. I instinctively sensed something was wrong and wanted to speak, but my throat felt blocked. Officer Nathan downed a glass of wine and, with a slight sob, said, "I'm sorry. She's been sent." My head went blank, as if it were going to explode. My cousin didn't report this time. He waited until we sent our child to school, then broke into our house and took Ellie to the police station. This time, it didn't matter how slowly the police moved. My ears started ringing, and the world spun around me. I felt like I'd lost my mind. I kept mumbling, "You have a way." Officer Nathan said he had no way. My breathing became rapid, I was so panicked I nearly fainted. He grabbed my shoulders and told me to calm down. He said, "Your wife has something to tell my family." I asked what. He told me Ellie had been crying heartbreakingly in the station. She said, if she had known that was the last sentence, she wouldn't have told our child that she would spank her. She would have said, "Mom loves you so much." I finally couldn't suppress the panic and fainted. After the authorities completed the process, Ellie was deported on the same day as our daughter's birthday. I held my daughter's hand and stood at the border. She held a small cake and pointed, saying, "Strawberries are for Mom, pineapples are for Dad. I want cream." Then she looked up at me and asked, "Dad, where is Mom? Why is she home?" I said, "You'll see Mom soon." She added, "It's uncomfortable when Dad puts socks on me. Mom does it better. I want Mom to put socks on me." I touched her head and said nothing because I saw Ellie arriving. She was brought over by several policemen, including Officer Nathan. She had lost a lot of weight. I had fattened her up with care over the years, but in just a few days, she had grown thin again, just like when we first met. I walked up with my daughter, but the police asked me to keep my distance. My throat was sore, and my voice hoarse. I said, "Officer, today is the child's birthday. Can her mother have a piece of cake?" The officers looked at each other. Meanwhile, my daughter had already rushed over with the cake, hugging Ellie's leg. She looked up and asked seriously, "Mom, why haven't you been home? Are you mad because I didn't want to go to kindergarten?" Ellie's tears fell as she replied in broken Mandarin, "Mom's not mad. Mom loves you." My daughter pouted and said, "I went to kindergarten well. Can you come home and hold me to sleep?" Officer Nathan sighed and whispered, "Feed your mother the cake." We opened the box, but my daughter said, "I haven't made a wish yet." I lit the candles, and she prayed earnestly, "I want my mom to come back and live with me. I want to be with Mom and Dad forever. I will be good. Mom, don't let me make you angry again." Ellie burst into tears at that. My daughter was stunned and quickly covered her mouth, whispering to me, "Dad, what should I do? Grandma said wishes won't come true if you say them out loud." I didn't know how to answer. I just squatted down, gritted my teeth, and helped her feed Ellie the cake. Ellie opened her mouth wide, digging the fork deep into the cookie so her lips could brush against our daughter's fingers again and again. The child giggled, "Mom, that tickles." She tried to pull her hand back, but I held it tight. She said, "Dad, you're pinching me. It hurts." I said, "Feed like this, Mom, don't move." She cried, "But it really hurts." Ellie, distressed, whispered, "Listen to the child." The daughter didn't know that when she pulled her hand back, it was her final farewell to her mother. Ellie could no longer kiss her fingers. At that moment, a gunshot rang out from across the river. She turned to look back in the direction she had come. The river breeze blew past, ruffling her bangs. Her thin face added a touch of autumn to the cloudy day. She looked at me and I looked at her. Suddenly, Ellie forced a smile and said to me, "Feed me." I took the cake and fed Ellie gently. I didn't want to see this cake finished. I didn't want our time to fade away. But even if I was very reluctant, all good things must come to an end. When the plate was empty, Ellie smiled again. She didn't speak Mandarin well, so she spoke to me word by word, "I love you." The autumn wind carried her last goodbye and she tried to smile in front of the child. She was taken into the car. My daughter was sad. She asked me, "Dad, why didn't Mom go home with us? Is it because I expressed my wish?" I looked at the car and the heat in my heart became stronger and stronger. I left my daughter and ran madly to the river. Ellie lay by the window. She saw my actions and kept banging on the car window. I kept telling myself in my heart that I didn't want her to go back, even if she left me, even if she went to another country, even if I spent all my wealth. I didn't want to lose the person I loved most in that gunshot. I jumped into the river and swam frantically towards the middle of the bridge. I swam hard. In a daze, I saw that the other side seemed to have raised a gun. On this side of the shore, Officer Nathan roared, "Who dares to shoot?" He was Chinese. I continued to swim forward with all my strength. Even though I occasionally saw the muzzle of the gun in front of me, they didn't fire the bullet after all. While swimming, I raised my head from time to time. I longed for the girl to appear in my sight. Officer Nathan didn't get in a car with them. He kept yelling at me on the shore, asking me to go back quickly. My daughter was crying on the shore. She kept yelling to me, "Dad." My daughter also wanted to rush into the river to find me but was hugged by Officer Nathan. I didn't think of anything in my mind. My whole brain was blank. I swam under the bridge, longing for her to appear. Finally, a figure appeared in front of me. Ellie ran towards the fence. I could see her leaping. Although she was not tall, her upper body was finally higher than the fence. She hit the railing hard. Falling into the river, she splashed water. Fortunately, she was not far from me. I quickly swam towards her. When I hugged Ellie, she choked on the water several times. I held her tightly in my arms, gasped and said, "I want to take you away." Ellie was still handcuffed. She had no way to hold me, so she just cried in my arms. I held Ellie in one hand and swam downstream with the other. How I wished that at this moment, the police would turn a blind eye as they usually did. But this time was different. This time they had orders. I had tried my best to swim a distance, but they were still following me on the shore. Wherever I swam, they went. The police even got on a small boat and headed towards me. The most important thing was that I saw that someone on the other side of the river had also lowered a small boat. I was anxious, so I asked Ellie to hold her breath, then took her into the water and kept swimming downstream. I finally floated to the surface when Ellie was about to run out of breath. But when I looked back, my heart sank. I thought I had left them some distance behind. But how can a person swim faster than a boat? The policemen drove their boats to my side. I hugged Ellie tightly and whispered in her ear, "Don't be afraid, I love you, don't be afraid." I protected Ellie behind me. A policeman sighed and said to me, "Brother, she doesn't belong here after all. We received the order and we have no choice." I cried and said, "My lord, if this was on the shore, I would kneel down and kowtow to you. I beg you, just let us go. She has never broken the law. She has lived an honest life." The policeman said nothing, but pointed behind me. It turned out that the boat from the other side of the river had also reached us. Ellie anxiously got into my arms, but the people on the other side of the river had a bad temper. They picked up the oars and hit Ellie's head hard. Ellie was hit and sank. I quickly helped her up, then turned around and used my body to block Ellie. I wanted to escape from here. I wanted to take her away. I couldn't let go. I knew what letting go meant. Fortunately, when I turned my back to the people on the other side of the river, they did not dare to attack me. They just glanced at the police on our side nervously. Although Ellie was on the side of our police, everyone just sat on the boat and sighed. No one hit her. A policeman said to me helplessly, "Where can you escape to?" This girl has not broken the law, but your behavior now is illegal. You should go back. We didn't want to make a big deal out of this matter. But I seemed to be unable to hear what the police said. I hugged Ellie again and dived into the water. I swam towards my country. I knew those people didn't dare to cross this line. No matter what, I wanted to protect her. Just as I guessed, they really stopped the boat and didn't dare to get close, but they kept gesturing to our police anxiously. Suddenly, Ellie hugged me with her backhand. She has a petite figure, and the police probably didn't want to hurt her. The handcuffs were not very tight. In this smooth water, her hands finally broke free from the handcuffs. The moment she hugged me, Ellie couldn't help but burst into tears. When we first met, we hugged for a long time. I never thought that our farewell would be such a hug. She hugged my neck tightly. She kept crying in my ear, saying, "I love you." Her voice over and over again tore my heart apart. I wiped away my tears. Even though I had very little strength left, I still swam towards the shore with difficulty. I said I loved you too, but this time, I didn't say it in Mandarin, but in her language. Over the years, whenever she blushed with shyness, whenever she threw herself into my arms with joy, she would subconsciously say this to me in her native language. We spoke each other's language but expressed the same meaning. We wanted to run away, but a hand grabbed me. A policeman grabbed my shoulder, his eyes were red, and he lowered his voice and said to me, "Brother, stop making trouble. If you keep going like this, we will really fight." I cried and said, "She will die. What has she done wrong? She just wants a warm piece of clothing and a full meal." The policeman said, "I understand how you feel, but we can't let you go. You have no strength left. Let go quickly, or you will drown. It's too dangerous." They started the boat, and I watched the distance I had swum gradually shortened under the pull of the boat. The water was very cold. I didn't know that Ellie was shivering because her body temperature was dropping, or still because of fear. She hugged me, cried and told me to take good care of the child. I kept roaring and slapping the water. I longed to break free from the constraints of this small boat, but I could do nothing. From the beginning, I knew that there was little hope, but I couldn't control my heart. I couldn't just stand by and watch her leave. We were finally pulled to that line again. This time, the police caught me, and the people on the other side caught Ellie. As the two boats pulled against each other, I held Ellie's hand tightly. She burst into tears and gripped my hand with all her strength, but the water was too slippery, and we couldn't hold on. We tried our best, but our nails only pierced each other's hands, leaving deep, bloody marks. It hurt so much. Whether it was my hands or my heart, the pain was so intense I could barely breathe. I wanted to hold her tightly, but I could only watch her drift farther and farther away. In desperation, I took the soaked banknotes from my pocket money I had prepared long ago. Though it was only a few thousand yuan, the wet banknotes had become heavy. I threw them onto the other boat. I didn't know many languages, so I could only keep shouting, "This is a gift." The people on the boat stared at me, stunned. I repeated, "This is a gift," and added, "Goodbye." I hoped they could understand what goodbye meant. I hoped they could understand one thing: as long as they treated Ellie well, I would come back to give them more gifts. I watched Ellie being dragged onto the boat by them, while I was dragged back onto mine by the police. Someone put a coat over my shoulders and lit a cigarette for me. I was shivering from the cold, but I just stared blankly at Ellie's receding figure. She had appeared suddenly in my life, and just as suddenly, she was gone. She didn't say hello when she came, and she didn't say goodbye when she left. But I looked down at the bloodstains on my hands. How could the mark she left on me ever disappear? When I returned to shore, all my relatives were there. They had come to see Ellie for the last time. A policeman patted me on the shoulder and said, "Don't go swimming in the water anymore. You can't swim here." They sighed and didn't press charges for what I'd just done. They exchanged looks and left. On this land, there is always a kind of unspoken understanding, but even that has its limits. My parents were sobbing on the shore, holding my daughter in their arms. My cousin had come too, and he looked at me with a victorious smile. As I approached, he said coldly, "Feel good now. This is karma for your family looking down on me." I said nothing. Seeing my silence, he continued, "Brothers are like limbs, women are like clothes. Wouldn't it have been better to let me have her from the beginning? At worst, you could have gone out and played too. It's not like she could stop you with her status." At that moment, I clenched my fist and punched my cousin in the face. He fell to the ground but didn't show a hint of fear. He sneered, "That punch settles the score. Dare to beat me to death? Don't you care about your daughter?" Then he pointed at my child. Despair flooded into me. Ellie's last wish had been for me to take care of our daughter. I knew what kind of person my cousin was. If I gave in to rage, he'd go straight to the police and have me thrown in jail. And once I was in jail, he'd never let my family go. He couldn't stand to see anyone else happy. My daughter rushed to my side, crying, "Dad, why did Mom go to the other side? Didn't you tell her never to go there?" I knelt beside her, cupping her little face. She wiped her tears and sobbed, "People say those who go to the other side never come back. Will Mom never come back?" I wanted to say no, that Mom would come back. But at that moment, a gunshot rang out from the other side. Silence fell. I turned my head, dazed, trying to see across the water, but the distance was too great. All I saw was a flock of birds, startled by the gunfire, soaring into the sky. The sky was vast and boundless. They flew freely, circling in the clouds. My cousin suddenly laughed maniacally and shouted to my daughter, "Your mom won't come back, she's been shot." My father, enraged, grabbed a stone and smashed it against my cousin's head, yelling, "I'm old. I'm not afraid of jail. You destroyed my family, I'll kill you." Blood streamed down my cousin's face, but he just laughed, "Go ahead, kill me. No woman wants me anyway. I'm a lonely bachelor no one wants. What's the point of living?" The scene was in chaos. My daughter trembled in fear, crying non-stop. I held her, wiped her tears, and whispered, "Mom will be back. Be good. Let's wait for her together, okay?" My daughter nodded through tears, pleading, "Dad, don't lie to me, okay? I'll be good. Mom will really come back, right?" I opened my mouth bitterly and said, "She will be back. Don't forget you just made a wish. Sometimes only God can hear a wish once it's spoken." She held out her finger and asked me to pinky promise. I finally reached out and made the promise. I thought to myself, I wasn't lying to her, I was giving myself hope. Without hope, I couldn't survive. I looked at my blood-covered cousin and wanted to kill him with my own hands. But I had promised Ellie that I would raise our child. If I went to jail, with a criminal father and no mother, I knew exactly what my daughter would face. If Ellie had truly flown to the sky, she would want our child to live a good life. From that day on, we cut ties with my cousin. Even my uncle disowned him. Until the day he died, my uncle never forgave him. Before passing, my uncle called me to his side and handed me his will. Everything was to be left to me. He wept and apologized, saying that his greatest failure in life was not raising his son properly. I told him it wasn't his fault, and that I would take care of my aunt. My uncle said Ellie was a good woman and asked me to raise my daughter well. After his death, my cousin was furious to find he had not inherited a single cent. He caused trouble at the police station and even sued me in court, but he lost. The court upheld the will. Time is short, but also very long. 15 years have passed. It's my daughter's birthday again. She has become a graceful young lady. I kept my promise to Ellie and took good care of her. Before going out, my daughter insisted on putting on makeup for herself. For the past 15 years, every year on her birthday, we would go for a walk by the river. I urged her to hurry up, but she said that she wanted to go out beautifully. What if my mother could see it from the other side of the river? I could only move a bench and sit helplessly at the door waiting. I bit a cigarette. Just as I was about to light it, a pair of feet suddenly stepped into my sight, and a hand also appeared. There were deep scratches and scars on the hand. I couldn't help but take a closer look at the scar. I was shocked and looked up. At that moment, I couldn't stop my body from shaking while biting the cigarette. She looked at me with a smile. Although there were a few wrinkles on her face, I still remembered this look that haunted me. When I reacted, I quickly said, "Hide it quickly. If my cousin sees you, he will report it." She shook her head and suddenly took out a passport from her bag and put it in front of me. Ellie said gently, "I changed my nationality, thanks to your gift. I was in prison for 10 years. After I was released, I escaped again. This time I endured 5 years. I came to see you after I got my identity card. I couldn't control the throbbing in my heart and stood up. I have thousands of words to say. I want to say that I will go beat up my cousin first. I can't forget this grudge after 15 years. I also want to say, how did you get your identity card? Have you been well these years? I also want to say, how long is the visa for the new country? Can you not leave? I have thousands of words to say, but in the end, I said something so stupid, "Can I hug you?" Before I could finish my words, she threw herself into my arms, fragrant and soft. Thousands of words finally turned into just one sentence. We whispered in each other's ears at almost the same time, "I love you."